I will show you the 5 Sudoku lessons I have learned after making hundreds of solving videos. But I wish I had known these before I even started this channel. And with that, it's solving time. So lesson number 1, you need to understand that 80% of all the Sudoku cells in a puzzle are solved using just the 2 most common strategies. Notice how a 7 comes up column 3 and column 1. And you have a 7 that cuts across row 1. The only place for 7 in block 1 is right here, and that's a hidden single, and it's a very common strategy. Greetings, friend. Julian Locke dropped this hard puzzle in the comments of a previous video, and I think it's perfect to show you the 5 Sudoku lessons I wish I had known before starting this channel. And before I get to lesson 2, I want to hear from you. What is one thing you regret about Sudoku? Please, please, please share with the other viewers and help me grow the internet's best Sudoku community. I regret not knowing these 5 lessons sooner. And so in addition to the hidden single, a naked single, when there's only one possibility in a cell, that's the other most common strategy. So that's the first thing you're going to do here in the puzzle, along with lesson 2 that I'm going to show you. You got to find an efficient way to keep track of your cell restrictions. That means mark smartly. And so start, you want to look for digit restrictions from 1 to 9, mark any 3 by 3 cell or block where a candidate can only appear 2 times. So if you notice here, up in block 1, with this one and this one, there's only 2 places for a 1 in block 1. And so you mark that, and this is a great restriction. You solve this cell for anything but a 1, you can solve that cell immediately for a 1. Nothing else you can mark with the 1s right now. Look at the 2s, with this 2 cutting across row 3 and up column 6. 2 places for a 2 in block 2, and then these same 2s cut across 2 places for a 2 in block 7. No other marks you can make with the 2s. Look at the 3s. And with these 2 3s, only 2 places for a 3 in block 3. And then with these 3s, only 2 places in block 4. This helps you find where restrictions are and where to be looking to help solve this puzzle. You look at the 4s. With these 2 4s, there's no places where there's only 2 possibilities or solves you can make at this time. Same thing with the 5s. You got at least 3 or more possibilities in every block. But with the 6s, with these 2 6s, there's only 1 place for a 6 in block 8. And then with these 2 6s, 2 places for a 6 in block 7. And then you can notice with this 6 and this 6, 2 places for a 6 in block 3. And then with this 6 and this 6 here, you have what's called a pointing pair of 6s. They're in the same row. Since 6 has to be in one of these spots, it eliminates a 6 from possibly being there. So there's only 3 places to put a 6 here in block 4. Not going to mark it. You only want to mark when there's 2 possibilities, 1 restriction or 1 step away from being able to solve it. Move on now to the 7s. With all these 7s right here, here, and here, you can solve for a 7 in block 6. Gives you 2 places for a 7 in block 5. And then with these 7s, 7s in block 2. And with these 7s, 7s in block 8. No other marks that you can make with the 7s. Move on to the 8s. And you might see with these 2 8s and this 8, you can solve for an 8 in block 9. And then with these 2 8s, solve for an 8 pretty quickly in block 6. And then with this 8 and these 8s, solve for 8s up in block 1. And then with this 8 and this 8 cutting across, you end up with a nice pointing pair of 8s in block 2, which restricts the 8s now to only this cell in block 5, right? Because of the pointing pair, can't be here anymore. And then we can move on to the 9s, and you might see there's nothing you can mark just yet with the 9s. And so this is a bonus tip. If you've made a few solves, going from 1 to 9, you want to go back through the puzzle because you don't want to move on to the next step or the next lesson I'm about to teach you until you get as many of the easy solves as you can. For example, this one cuts across row 4, and now you have a pointing pair of 1s in block 6 because we filled out that 7, which restricts the 1s to one of these two cells. Since you have a 1 right here, you can solve this cell now for a 1 in block 5. And then follow these two cells where the 1s are, and you notice in block 2, this is the only place for a 1. And this leads me up to lesson number 3. And you want to look at the impact of the row, column, and block. And I'm not the only person that says this. I was just at SudokuCon last week. Thomas Snyder, 3-time world Sudoku champion, he talked about solving tips and strategies, and this is one of the things he said. He said, don't just keep following your solve path to a new place in the grid. Look at the impact at the row, the column, and the block whenever you make a solve. So let's look at the impact of this cell being filled out in block 2. Because you displaced the 2, you can solve this cell for a 2 that displaces the 8 and displaces that 7. And now look at the impact in the rest of the block. You got a 3 right here. Only place the 3 goes right there. Means this has to be a 9 to finish block 2. And now you can look at the impact in the column. You made all these solves. You only have 2 possibilities left. You can displace that 7, put that at first 7. You have a 4 and a 5 possible because of this 4. That has to be your 4. That has to be your 5. But instead of going down here, stay up here because there's still more. Look at the impact of this one on the row now, right? You have what's called a heavy house. There's at least 5 cells filled out. And so you have quite a bunch of restriction in row 2. You have a 1, 3, 5, 7, 8, 9. You need a 2, 4, and a 6 to finish row 2. Well, with this 4, 6 right here, this has to be a 2. And then you can fill out the 4, 6 naked pair across row 2. That's going to come in handy. You do want to start filling out pairs at this time. It'll help you find some of those other restrictions and strategies. So let's look at the impact now here in block 5. You got 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You need a 2, 3, and a 9. Because of this 2 coming down, this has to be your 2. Because of this 3, that's a 3. That's going to be your 9. Okay, and because of that 3, you can displace this 3, solve this for a 3 now. And so you can continue on here. You'll notice this is a nice 1, 3, 5, 7, 8, 9. You need a 2, 4, and a 6 across here. That's going to be a naked triple. This can't be your 2. So it limits your 2s to these 2 cells. And what's left up here is going to be a 5 and a 9. Well, I see a 5 right there, so here's your 5, and here's your 9, which gives you a nice 1, 2 right here, and a 9 and a 6 to finish block 6. And you might think, oh, we got to keep looking down here, but in reality, if you came back to block 2 again, look at that 3. That 3 allows you to displace the 3 here and solve for a 3 right there. And now with these 2 3s, you have 2 places for 3 in block 9. In fact, you have a 1, 3, 5 naked triple. And then if you look down here in column 5, you might notice because of this 7, you can displace that 7, solve this cell for 7, gives you a full house, 8 of 9 cells filled out. It's called a full house. Means you can solve this with certainty for a 4. And not quite done. We can keep on doing some work here because you might see that with these 8s now, you can solve this cell for an 8. And that allows you with this 9 and this 9 to solve this cell now for a 9. And then if you look here and notice the 3s are restricted to these 2 cells in block 9. And then if you come down column 2, you have a 1, 2, 5, 7, 8, 9. You need a 3, 4, and a 6. Well, the 3s are restricted to these 2 cells. And this is actually going to be a 3, 4. And that's going to be a 3, 6, part of that naked triple. And since the 3s are restricted to rows 8 and 9 here in block 7, and block 9. That means the 3's got to be there and there, or there and there. And it tells you where can a 3 be in row 7. Well, it can't be here, and it can't be here because they're restricted down there. This has to be your 3. It's a hidden single 3, which will allow you to have a 5, 9 naked pair to finish block 8. And then you can do a little bit more marking here. You might notice with this 4 and this 4, you got 2 4s here in block 3. And then in block 9 with this 4 and this 4, 2 4s possible right there. And then with these 9s, you have 2 places for a 9 in block 7. That is about it. That's all you're going to find common strategies that you'd see in my free Sudoku solving guide, the top 7 strategies. This brings me up to lesson 4, because what are you going to do? When you get stuck, you got to know where to move to next. And this is the lesson. You have 2 choices when you get stuck. You don't want to give up. Look how far you've gotten. We want to finish this. The 2 choices are, you're going to look for advanced strategy, but you're going to look either one of 2 ways. You're going to look for single candidate strategies or for buy value sells. These BVCs, like the 4, 6 here and here, those are so close and they're using so many advanced strategies. That is the clue you need. Single candidate come in very handy as well to find restrictions for you. We might actually need both. The way to do it is what I'm going to show you right now. You need to fill out these heavy houses. So when you see more than 5 cells filled out in a row, column, or block, fill out the rest, see if you can find some more buy value cells. Look across row 3. You got a 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, you need a 1, 4, or a 5. Well, that can only be a 4 or a 5 because of this 1. And then these 2 cells are a 1, 4, or 5. Okay, so you just found another buy value cell. Nice. Look across row 7. There's 6 digits filled out, 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8. So you just need a 4, 5, or a 9. And because of the 9 in the column, that can't be a 9. That's still going to be a 4, 5, or 9. You create another BVC, another buy value cell. You'll notice right here, that can't be a 1. And it's curious when you look at that cell. Notice that this is a 3, 5. And I'll highlight that in blue. Well, this is a 3, 4. So it shares a 3, but it also has a different digit of 4. But this in the block shares the block with this cell, 4, 5. So it shares the 4s, but it also has a 5, same as here. So what you might see is that this orange cell actually sees both these 2 cells. It shares a block here and shares a row right there. You have all 3 paired possibilities of the digits 3, 4, and 5, all buy value cells. You got the 3, 4 here, 3, 5 here, 4, 5 right there. So check out the 2 values of this cell. If this is a 3, that has to be a 5 in the blue. If this is a 4, that has to be a 5. Because of this arrangement, you have found an XY wing. And the reason you found this XY wing is because you're looking at these heavy houses and trying to see what you could do with the buy value cells. So what we know is, since no matter what this is, you got a 5 on one of these blue cells, you can eliminate a 5 from any cell that sees both. And so this cell shares the block here and the row here. You can eliminate a 5 right there. If you put a 5 right there, you'd remove 5s from those cells and you'd have nothing to put right there. It'd be very bad. The other place you can eliminate a 5 is right here, right? Because it sees the blue cells together. And this could be a 2, 4, 5, 9. So now it's just going to be a 2, 4, or a 9. Also a nice intermediate step right here. Since this can no longer be a 5, the 5s are limited in row 7 to block 7. This makes them a claiming pair. So 5s are claimed in block 7 up here in row 7. So this cell can no longer be a 5. So if it can't be a 5, it can't be a 1, it could be a 2, can't be a 3, can't be a 4, can't be a 5 anymore. Could be a 6, but it can't be a 7, 8, or a 9. So this is a nice 2, 6 buy value cell. So you create another buy value cell. But we're not done. You made some restrictions, but we didn't solve any cells. Don't worry, you made some progress. where can we go from here? You want to look and think about lesson 2, impact on row, column, and block. The other option I told you about, besides by value cells, is looking at single candidates. You might notice a lot of these by value cells contain 4s. That contains a 4, that contains a 4, that contains a 4. These all contain 4s. So let's look at the candidate 4. There's something going on with these 4s. 4s can be here. They can be here. You see a lot of what I'll call conjugate pairs. I'll talk about that in just a second. 4s can be here, and they can be here. Put that in the blue. Okay, so a conjugate pair. Where you see conjugate pairs is like across row 2. Either a 4's here. If it's not there, it has to be there. So when a candidate only appears 2 times in a row, column, or block, it's a conjugate pair. They're relying on each other. Either the 4's here. If it's not, it forces it right there. In the block, same thing. A 4's got to be here or here. That's why we mark 2 candidates. Another reason to mark just 2 candidates. You see these are the backbone, these conjugate pairs. So notice that you have a conjugate pair of 4's coming down column 7, right? And I'm going to mark this yellow. And then you have another conjugate pair coming out of row 2, the one we talked about at the beginning. So it's interesting. Whenever you have a block like this, and you have a conjugate pair coming out of one of the columns, and another conjugate pair coming out of one of the rows, you found an advanced strategy. So think about this. Here, this is a 4. This is a 4. Anything that sees it can't be a 4. If it's not a 4, then it forces a 4 right here. This can't be a 4. And you'd have to put a 4 right here because it's the only other place for 4 in column 7. So what you notice is that a 4 has to be in one of the yellow cells. A 4's here. If it's not there, it has to be right there. Since you know a 4 can be in either one of those cells, this cell cannot contain a 4 because it sees both of them, right? It shares the column here, shares the row right there. This is called a 2-string kite. And it's called a kite because of the conjugate pairs. This is like the tails of the kite, and this is like the top of it. That's the best way to look at it. But what it lets you do is it lets you eliminate a 4 from this cell. And once you eliminate a 4 from that cell, you've created another BVC, another by value cell. And you should be excited about this. You're making some progress. You might think, well, Timberlake, I didn't see anything get solved here. Well, analyze the impact on row, column, and block. Now you have a 5-9 right there. You have a 4-9 right here in the row. And you have a 4-5 right here in the column. We have all 3 paired possibilities of the digits 4, 5, and 9, right? And one of the cells right here sees the other 2. So if this is a 5, that's a 4. If this is a 9, that has to be a 4. And what does that mean? You can eliminate a 4 from any cell that sees both of these. So you can eliminate a 4 from right there. This is huge because it also has a mark on it. So what does that mean? This can't be a 4. And easily I can show you that. You put a 4 right here, puts a 5 there, puts a 9 right there, and then you'd have nothing to put right there. So if you just go backwards, you can see why this cannot be a 4. And so you can eliminate that 4. Gives you a nice 1, 5. And so now you found another XY wing. You eliminate that, and you know you can solve for a mark now. And so what you can do is solve this for a 4. And you're going to be able to make some more solves. This is beautiful. Thank you so much, Julian, for this puzzle. I loved it when I saw this logic in here. I'm glad you made this and sent it to me through the comments. Now you want to get to lesson 5. This is the part that's going to decrease your solve time the most. It's by focusing on the last solves. Every puzzle, whether it's easy, medium, hard, extreme, unfair, they all use those top 2 strategies. The hidden single and the naked single. You get most of them here at near the end, the last third of the puzzle. The faster you are at that, the faster you're going to solve all these puzzles. You can practice it on every single puzzle. You cannot practice advanced strategies with every puzzle, but you can practice this. So let's follow this. Because of this 4, that can't be a 4. This has to be a 4 now. And now you can go across the row. That's going to be your 5. That's going to be your 9. And then you eliminate the 9 from right there. Now what do we do? you're going to continue on and see, well, with this 4, means that has to be a 6, right? Go back to lesson 2, row, column, and block. Since that's a 6, this can't be a 6 anymore. And this 4 displaced that 6 right there. Now you can solve that for a 9, solve this for a 6. And so you're just adding more and more solved cells as you go along. And so you go, okay, what's the impact of that? Well, if you look right here, what can this be? It can be 1, 4, or 5. We got a 4 here, and you got a 5 right there. So this is a naked single 1. You got to put that in perspective. And for some reason, I put a 3 here. That should have been a 1 or a 5. That's going to be your 5. That's going to be your 1. I apologize for that. But that's a 2. That's going to be a 1 right there. And now you can solve this for a 3. Solve that for a 1. And then with this 5 here, this has to be your 5. That's going to be a 4. Okay? And after solving that for the 4, you can remove the 4 from right here. And then what else do we do for the solves? Well, look at the full house. You got everything in here except a 5. It'll allow you to solve this for 5, solve that for a 9. And then you got 2 digits here. You need to do a 2 or a 9. Well, we just solved the 9 there. So there's your 9, there's your 2. The impact, that's got to be a 6. That's going to be your 2. That's going to be your 4. That's going to be your 6. With this 6, that has to be a 3. That's got to be a 4. And our last digit is a 2. Now apply the lessons I just shared with you to this next puzzle. Thank you so much for watching.